My name is Nick Shell, and you're watching this video because someone you know and love has recently become a vegan. And it's really bothering you. You don't want to have to accommodate this person and all their new needs now that they're a vegan. You don't want that in your life. And you're thinking, how can I get them to stop being a vegan? How can I get them to start eating meat again and eggs and dairy? How can I do that? I'm probably the only person on YouTube that can honestly help you. Because here's the thing. I am emotionally intelligent. And I know that if you try to convince someone against what they believe, you're going to fail because of identity protective cognition, which means anything you say that goes against that deep belief they have is only going to backfire, and they're going to try that much harder to prove you wrong. So there's nothing you can say to a vegan that's going to convince them that they're wrong. You're wasting your time. It's only going to reinforce their beliefs. So here's why this is interesting to you. Because I was a vegan up until 6 months ago. And it wasn't just a phase. I was a vegan for 5.5 years. I was a vegetarian for 7. And as of 6 months ago, that's no longer who I am now. I eat meat now. I eat eggs. I eat dairy. I don't drink milk because it messes with my sinuses. I can't eat tuna because it breaks out my hand, and I still don't eat anything that's not kosher. I still have several dietary restrictions, but I definitely eat meat now, and I eat eggs, and have cheese too. So I'm the perfect person because you'd have to think. Imagine what it took for me to become a vegan, the information and psychology involved there. But then after 5.5 years or 7 years of vegetarian, imagine what it took for me to then go back to how I was again. I assure you that no one argued with me, debated with me, sat me down, had a talk with me, was able to convince me to make either of those decisions. Here's what we're talking about. And I actually mapped this out because I'm planning to do a blog post on my actual blog, Family Friendly Daddy blog, about this. So here we go. 5 ways to get a vegan to start eating meat again. And ultimately, here's the answer. Give them 100% support. I mean, I guess we could lazily say that this is ultimately reverse psychology. But let's get more specific. I'm going to give you 5 steps here. Number 1, for that person in your life that's now a vegan, that you don't want to be a vegan, here's the first step. Number 1, ask them encouraging, positive questions only. Don't make any statements or ask any questions that seem to imply that you're skeptical, that you're against it, that you don't like it. If you have anything you're going to say, make sure it's positive, whether it's a question or a statement, to again avoid identity protective cognition. Because what you're doing is you're maintaining that relationship. Despite them going down this path that you don't like and don't agree with, you're still showing that you care about them, you love them, and you support them the same, even though you don't personally agree with them. You show them your support by the only things you're ever going to say are going to be positive and supportive. Because down the road, they're going to remember that, and even now, they're going to remember that. They're going to have more respect for the people who support them than those who immediately tell them that they're an idiot, that they're wrong, and all that stuff. That's number 1. Only say positive things to them, positive questions. Number 2, privately research other effective natural cures to help them maintain their current healed status. And then be ready to share that when they are in an accepting moment. Let me give you an example. One of the reasons I became a vegan is because I had an incurable disease, dyshidrotic eczema. And there is no medical cure for it. But I discovered that when I became a vegan, it completely went away. So why would I want to have to struggle with this skin disease that was basically causing my skin to constantly burn up and spread all over my body if I could just become a vegan and not have the problem anymore? Well, in hindsight, years later, what I realized was, You can say you can say this is crazy, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, I have Jewish DNA, and for the history of the world, as far as the Mosaic Law, Jewish people weren't allowed to eat pork or shellfish. Well, once I cut out pork and shellfish, that was one of the first ways I realized there's certain things I can't process when I digest them, but otherwise it causes my skin to break out. And ultimately, shellfish and even tuna, even though tuna's kosher, I can't handle it. So ultimately, and I'm one of the few people who knows that if you've got dyshidrotic eczema, part of your problem is that one of the first things you should do is cut out pork and shellfish and tuna. But see, no one else had that information. No one else could have helped me. So the problem was I didn't want the eczema anymore, the dyshidrotic eczema, which causes these little blisters on your hands. And they spread like fire. It's like they burn, and then they dry up your skin, and it's awful. So no one else had the answer. The only answer I had is be vegan. Now I know the full answer of what I needed to cut out. But see, that's the thing. If you can figure out, why did they become a vegan anyway? Was it for some kind of medical reason? Well, maybe they just threw this blanket over the things that, well, if I become a vegan, that'll solve the problem. And it does often. But what if there was another way that they didn't have to be so drastic and they could only change a few things and still be healed? Do your research, figure that out, be ready to provide them with that information and say, look, man, I know you became a vegan because of this. Hey, let me just run something by you. I was looking this up and I saw, well, actually, this specifically, so you're right in being a vegan, but specifically it looks like what's really working for you, the vegan, is this part that you're cutting out. So that would be an example. Now, there's all kinds of reasons people become vegans and have enhanced health because of it and cure ailments. And I'm giving you my personal example. But it's a matter of researching to find out other ways to get to them to that same cure. And so that they can keep that in mind later on. I had to do my own research and figure it out myself. All right, moving on to the third one. Number 3, accommodate their dietary needs when cooking and dining out. Assuming this is a close family member and you do a lot of cooking. You don't want to complain about how now that you've got to redo, your cookbook or whatever you used to making them. You don't want to tell them that. Just find out what they can eat and provide something that'll work for them. They don't care that it's the best ever, as long as the fact that you made an effort to accommodate them, or if you're going to a restaurant that there's something that they can eat. Vegans typically aren't really picky. They're just proud to be able to eat something and feel included, because for the most part, people aren't quick to welcome vegans. They don't worry about that. But so someone who takes time to care about them in that way, that speaks volumes. And again, it reinforces the fact that you're going to be the person that they respect now and even after this thing's done if they stop being a vegan. All right. Number 4. Number 4 is regularly reassure them of the positive traction they've made as a vegan. So the fact that they have had this health problem and now it's gone, keep talking about that. That's awesome that you used to have this problem, this health problem, and now you don't. And maybe for me, I lost a lot of weight and maintained it for about 1.5 years, and then it reversed. But, anything you can say positive about that you see that's working for them, absolutely make sure to talk about that. And the reason for it is because ultimately, like for me, my weight loss, for example, started reversing after a certain amount of time. And I was so used to being able to eat as much food as I wanted to and not gain any weight. And actually, I'd only lost weight by eating more. So once I made that a part of my vegan identity and realized, wait a minute, this isn't working anymore. I'm actually gaining my weight back. I've gained it all back. This isn't working anymore. So that's why focusing and reminding them on those positive things, once things do start unraveling, if it is a temporary thing, it's going to remind them, wait, but the reason I was doing it was for this, and I'm not getting this thing anymore. All right. Lastly, number 5, wait long enough for it to run its course. And then, of course, you'll be there to support them along the way. Because my perception of being a vegan is it's not a long-term thing. Now, granted, yes, I was a strict vegan for 5.5 years, and many people say, well, that's a long time, Nick. That's, if a baby's born now in 5.5 years, they're going to be in kindergarten. That's a long time, and it is. But ultimately, I think what happens is our bodies can tolerate being a vegan for a certain amount of time. For some people, a few weeks. For some, a few months. For some, a few years. And for some people, several years. But it got to the point where I was gaining so much weight, I was like, well, I can't even fit into most of my pants anymore. So obviously this isn't a long-term thing. If only I could cure my eczema. And then I realized, as I started eating meat again, that the tuna was the main problem, even though it was kosher. So tuna and processed sugar are the main things I can't eat for my skin. And as for my weight loss, maybe I'll never be as slim as I was when I was a vegan, but now I know that, well, change my calories, stop eating as much white bread, start working out, things that I'll have to just change now that and part of that was my metabolism, because now I'm past 35, I'm almost 38, but when I became a vegan, I was a couple years before 35, so that's part of it too. So there you go. I do plan to have a blog post about this that I'll put a link in right there for you to be able to see the blog version of it. I do feel this is the most relevant and efficient advice you're going to get on trying to help someone not be a vegan anymore. But remember, it's all about completely supporting them. They're going to have a lot of people who reject them and won't treat them very kindly. They're going to look for that person who is faithful to them to support them. And they're going to remember it. I remember it now. I can still think of plenty of people who told me what an idiot I was. But I can think of all the people who supported me the whole time. And that leaves a lasting impression. If you got comments, leave a long right here.